Inspiring interviews with today's top landlords. This is the Rental Income Podcast. And now, Dan Lane.
Kyle, when did you start buying rental properties?
I started buying rental properties 3 years ago.
It sounds like you've been pretty aggressive over the last 3 years. Tell us what you've done.
Yeah, I certainly have been. We've purchased 65 rentals in that 3 years. Right now we sit at $61,000 in gross rents. And after you take out all the expenses, we're sitting right around $15,000 in monthly net income.
That's pretty incredible. 3 years ago, Kyle knew nothing about rental properties. And on the podcast today, we're going to figure out how he went from $0 in rental income to $15,000. We'll figure out what types of properties he's buying. We'll take a look at his financing. We'll take a look at one of his deals. And we'll look at his numbers for his entire portfolio. Joining us on the show today from Green Bay, Wisconsin is Kyle Root. We'll take a really quick break to thank our sponsors. We'll come right back and we'll talk to Kyle.
Do you worry about your renters breaking their lease? Or even worse, what if they simply stop paying their rent? Well, I have good news for you. There's insurance for that. I'm Jesse Schmidt, Senior Vice President of Sales here at the Guarantors. You may remember me from Dan's bonus episode back on September 15th, 2022, Is This Better Than a Security Deposit? The Guarantors guarantees your leases, protecting your rental income against rent defaults, vacancy loss, lease breaks, holdover, apartment damage, and more. This is all at no cost to the property owner. Your tenants pay for the insurance premium, leaving you to sleep better at night with one less worry. Within minutes, you can enroll your rental properties today with the Guarantors by visiting theguarantors.com. Again, that's theguarantors.com. If you want to learn more about our platform, check out the bonus episode from September 15th, 2022.
It's a lot of work to find a really good rental property. And when you actually find that property, you want to make sure you're working with a lender that can get that loan closed. The lender that I recommend is Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. She's a nationwide lender, and her specialty is helping investors finance rental properties. She has a ton of loan programs, and she can find something customized to you for your situation. If you want to find out more or you're ready to get started today, just go to ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE lendinggroup.com. NMLS 42056.
Rental Income Podcast.
Let's figure out how you're getting to $15,000 a month in cash flow. So can you walk us through kind of big picture how it works?
Yeah, so we're total rents, like I mentioned, we're right around $61,000. Our main goal is to get $300 cash flow per unit. So if we sit at a duplex, we're looking for $600. If we're at a single family home, we want $300. So that's our bare minimum. There's obviously varying within that realm, but $300 is our bare minimum that we're going to attack. And if you look at total rents at that 61,000, 65 units brings us into that like $20,000 range. But we do have some vacancies. We do have some other other ways that we finance properties. So that's kind of where we get that $15,000 mark, is just some vacancies and some other things from a financing perspective that we're working through.
Okay. All right. So 65 rentals. And if you're looking to make $300, and so the $300, that is after you've paid everything. You've paid your mortgages, any other expenses. You've put money aside for repairs. Like that $300, that is your profit on every property.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you look at, you'll hear a lot of people talk about everyone's cash flow, and the way they define cash flow is different. But for us, we have months where a single family home will cash flow $450 a month, but that does not take out, and we call it cash flow versus true cash flow. Our true cash flow means that we're going to take that $450, take $150, and we're just going to put it away for future repairs, capital expenditures, any unforeseens, if you will.
Okay. All right. So $300 times 65 units, that's $19,500. But you've got some vacancy going on. So is that kind of what you're saying here, is that you're getting to about 15,000 because you've got some vacancy in there?
That's correct.
Okay.
some vacancies, and yep.
Kyle, so let's talk about your portfolio. 65 properties. What does that look like? Are you buying single families? Are you buying duplexes? What kind of properties are you buying?
Yeah, so we're kind of a mixed bag. So we're buying a lot of single families, a lot of duplexes, and I would say on the smaller scale, we're buying triplexes and fourplexes. Then fourplexes is really the biggest that we hold at this time. We don't really say no to deals, so it's not like we're out there searching specifically for single families or duplexes, but that's just kind of, our bucket that we chase is that 1 to 4 units. It's going to be a fixer-upper type property, and we like a solid area, right? We're not necessarily buying in small markets. We like markets that are appreciating and something that's up and coming. So yeah, that's just kind of the overview on how we search for properties, and if it's a good deal, we go chase it.
Is everything local to where you live? Like when you say different markets, are you talking about like different markets within Green Bay or
Correct.
different market? Okay. So within your city, everything's local. And so the neighborhoods are like, how would you rate the neighborhoods that you're buying?
Yeah, so I would say mostly where we buy is that C plus to B neighborhoods. So we do buy outside of Green Bay, and I guess when I say markets is within roughly an hour and a half radius of us. So there's some different markets outside of Green Bay that are really nice. They're upcoming areas, and we just make sure that we have the right team, we have the right management, we have the right construction that can back us. But yeah, the neighborhood wise, we're buying in C plus to B neighborhoods.
Have you found a bedroom and bathroom combination that works best?
I have, yeah. It's funny you asked that. So, but believe it or not, my favorite properties that we buy in this area are 2-bed, 1-bath, 1-car garage under, say, 850 square feet. They have, yeah, they're really, from a rental standpoint, they're really sought after. They have really nice rents. You can get them for relatively cheap. Yeah, they've really just kind of been our niche, if you will.
It's interesting. Garages keep coming up on the podcast. We had a couple of guests a few months ago talking about that they buy 2-car garages, but you found it as long as there's a 1-car garage, you're going to attract a good tenant.
Yeah, so obviously the tenant side and just the value. I think a lot in our area, a lot of the 1-car garages and just the size of vehicles today, most vehicles, say you have a truck and you have a 1-car garage in our area, if it's built before the 1950s, it's very, very seldom how many trucks are going to fit in that 1-car garage. So they look at it more from like a storage perspective,
Yep.
So, and then the value is obviously there too from an appraisal standpoint. So when we buy them, we fix them up, and then we want to pull some cash back out. So when we go get an appraisal, they like seeing, regardless of saying, this is not going to fit a truck, they still value it as that 1-car garage, and it appraises out well.
So it sounds like you've been really busy building out your portfolio in 3 years to buy 65 properties. And with all the cash flow that you have coming in, you mentioned at the beginning that you're profiting $15,000 a month. Are you full time now with your rentals, or do you still have a day job?
Yeah, so the rentals, it's full time.
Awesome.
I was able to dive in full time, and I will say when you get to this point, and you're growing the way we're trying to grow and continue to scale, it's there's no other way than it be full time.
Right. What were you doing before?
So I was a project manager, a project coordinator, if you will, for an industrial construction company. So my background is in construction, which is obviously transitioned pretty well to doing this type of work.
Yeah, I think that's probably very helpful. Do you think that having that construction background is what allowed you to get into so many rentals in such a short period of time?
I really do. And I think, so my background is industrial, so power plants, refineries, things like that. But I was on the management side. So just understanding, so you take a guy that's a carpenter or a painter, and there's a lot of contractual obligations that need to stand up in the power plant, just like there has to be in this business. So understanding contracts, knowing how to write them, knowing how to negotiate prices, payment terms. There's a lot of things that really transitioned well. And for me at a young age, I was very thankful that I had some of that management type background, because you bring it into the residential world and it really transitions well. And most people haven't seen the residential side, so it was super helpful.
So then, how did you educate yourself? To think, okay, well, you've got that part figured out, but there's still so much to figure out with how do you manage properties and what are tenants looking for, and how do you improve properties so that they're nice, but they're not too nice? Like, how did you educate yourself and figure all that stuff out?
Yeah, it's such a good question. We live in a day and age where there's so much information. And I feel as if you're always looking for different people and different information, it can become overwhelming. And I think when people get overwhelmed, it leads to a lack of action. You're so scared to make the wrong step because someone's telling you, hey, buy multifamily, buy single family. Nope, do syndications. It's like, well, geez, guys, where do I even start? Right. So for me, when I started, I had some of that. I was getting overwhelmed, and I said, it's just time. I was reading the books, doing the podcasts. Everyone that's here listening to your podcast today, they're obviously here for a reason, right? To gain information, gain knowledge, and go apply it in the real world. And I knew that there's the gaining information part, and that's what I had down. I mean, I read 30 books. I listened to every podcast I possibly could. I had a decent foundation built, and I just said, hey, we've got to start. We've got to get out there. We've got to start this thing. And that's when I bought my first property 3 years ago. And quite frankly, you're just not going to know everything. You're going to get into a property and you're going to learn things as you go. I mean, I just got off the phone with one of my contractors this morning, and I'm always learning stuff. We walked away from a situation that I learned about, and it never ends. And if you just start and you take little nuggets as you go, you'll look back and be like, holy cow, I remember when I bought my first property, and now I'm at 5 or 6, and the amount that I've learned, it's pretty amazing. So just getting started, I guess. Yeah.
That's really good. That's really good. So let's take a look at one of your deals. Let's figure out what you're buying. Maybe we could look at 2 deals. Like, can we look at maybe a deal that's gone good? And I'm sure you've had some deals that have had some trouble. Do you have an example of each, of a good deal and maybe a bad deal?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll start with a good, because everyone loves a good story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So tell me, how did you find this property?
So it was through the MLS. That's how I found it.
Okay. And tell me about the property.
So it is a side-by-side duplex, a 2-car garage, and full basement, 2 bed, 1 bath each side. And it was, sitting on the market for $180,000. We were able to, our purchase was $155,000. So we were able to get it under ask price. And there was some construction work involved. We had $20,000 in construction work that we had to do. And our method on this one was a house hack. So I knew that I was getting off the road, working construction. I was going to go do real estate full time. And my wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, but we were going to move to the same area. We were going to house hack this property, and everything was going to be great. So we got in there. We lived in one side. We fixed it up while we lived there. The other side we fixed up first. So we were kind of living in a little bit of a tough shack, I guess, if you will, for a little bit. And then fixed up the other side. We had it rented out. We had it rented out for $1,100 a month, and we virtually lived for free for a year.
Wow. Okay. So your mortgage payment, all the expenses were about $1,100. So the other side was basically covering that?
Correct. And even at the time, we had a property management company. So our, all of our expenses, we put roughly 10% away in just miscellaneous capital expenditures, upcoming repairs. All expenses was $1,100, and we had the one side rented for exactly $1,100. So
Awesome.
obviously you have things here and there, $50 here and there that might sway your utilities up or down. But virtually, we live for free for a year.
And then when you moved out, then you had a lot of profit there.
Exactly. Yep. So when we moved out, we rented the exact same side for $1,100 a month, and that was true pure cash flow.
That's awesome. How long were you living there for?
We were there for 12 months.
Okay. Was that your plan to do a house hack every year, to live there for a year and move on, or did it just work out that way with that property?
Yeah, at the time, it was when we got into the property, honestly, we didn't even plan on really staying that long. We were planning to stay our 6 months and get out of there, but we were able to get rid of our largest expense, and we just kind of stayed there. And, I guess to answer your question, we kind of just fell into staying there for a year.
So have you done other house hacks?
I have, yeah. Actually, my very first property that I purchased was a house hack. But in general, I think that was our second house hack, and that was the last one that we ended up doing.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about a deal that maybe didn't go so good. That deal really sounds like it was very easy, a very good deal. Tell me about one that didn't go so good.
Yeah, so this was a single-family residence. And we purchased, or we were on a bunch of wholesale lists, right? So this was when I got off the road, and I needed as much possible deal flow as I could get. So I was on every single wholesaler's list that I could possibly get on. And a lot of people went away from doing the in-person inspections, and they started just doing them remotely, like sending you a Zoom or whatever it might be, just a video walkthrough with information. And this was my first opportunity with a wholesaler. I wasn't overly familiar, just kind of honestly just new to what a wholesaler was. And I gathered some information. I thought, right, we're going to put an offer in. There were some question marks at the time that I just didn't have information on, specifically the furnace and just construction activities that normally today we would have asked about. But then it wasn't even a thought. We ended up putting in a low offer in, and we're like, no way are we going to end up getting this. Well, 20 minutes later, I got a call and we got it. So, went into the property. Our construction budget that we had set for ourselves was $20,000, and $60,000 later, the project was complete.
Wow. So $40,000 over budget. So how did you come up with that extra money?
So luckily at the time, I still had a 401k. I had a good savings, and we had just completed our first flip. So honestly, it was right timing, right situation that we had the money available. We also had some opportunity where we had a little bit of wiggle room. Well, at the time, we thought we had a little bit more wiggle room as we were doing the renovation. So when we were going through there, we're like, no way are we going to hit that $60,000 mark. And on the back end, we were still buying properties. We were still flipping properties. We still had some rental income. So, we had other income coming in while that $60,000 was increasing, if you will. We were just hit with the $60,000 bill. It was spread out over 3-4 months.
Yeah. I mean, that's always, I think, the scary part of getting into a rehab is that can happen. I mean, have you had other projects that have gone way over what you initially budgeted?
Yeah, we have. We certainly have. And there's been opportunities where we've went way over, but because we are buying at such volume, we really have a lot that have come under. So in general, we've really came very, very close to even for the most part. I mean, we've had as we've gotten better, we've got better systems. We've been able to negotiate material prices. We're in with a lot of good subcontractors. So in general, we're pretty close to that even mark as far as renovations.
So if someone is looking to buy a property and they're looking to do a rehab, is there any advice that you could give them to make sure that they're not going to go way over budget? Are there maybe some red flags maybe with this property that maybe looking back on it you missed?
Yeah, so I would say for a first time, second time, or really any home buyer that wants nothing to do with the potential chance of going over the renovation costs is really the way that they purchase it. I think a lot of these properties that I buy, I would say out of the 65 that I've purchased, 60 of them have been no inspection contingencies, just because I've been able to walk a property and have a pretty good idea. But you put that inspection contingency in your offer, it really saves you from a lot of things. I mean, if you have a good inspector and he goes in there and inspects the big ticket items, which, is your furnace, your hot water heater, your roof, siding, things like that, that we don't see when we're just walking the property and we're like, okay, we know this needs flooring, paint, trim, cosmetic type updates. Those, new flooring, new carpet isn't tough to miss. But a furnace, if you never looked at a furnace before, it's a very difficult thing to know what you're really staring at, Right. So I think having an inspection contingency is helpful. I think walking the property with someone that has an experience, or having a property manager walk it before you ever put that offer in, and just getting kind of their overview and what they think.
If anybody wants to connect with Kyle, I've got a link to his Instagram on the website. You can find it at rentalincomepodcast.com/episode 401. If Kyle inspired you and you're ready to buy your first rental property, or you want to add to your portfolio, the lender that I recommend is Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. She's a nationwide lender, and her specialty is helping investors finance rental properties. She has a ton of different loan programs. Of course, she's got 30-year fixed programs. She's got interest only. She's got ARMs. She has first position HELOCs. Basically, Chaley can find something that'll work for you in your situation. If you want to find out more, or you want to set up a time to talk to Chaley personally, you can find her at ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE lendinggroup.com, NMLS 42056. Thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. I'll be back with a new interview next Tuesday. My name is Dan Lane, and this has been the Rental Income Podcast.